Imagine being locked out of your own home, only to find a complete stranger living inside, refusing to leave and somehow claiming you're the intruder. Yeah, that's exactly what this story's about. Story 1. This one is titled, Squatter Refuses to Leave My Home by U/Brickhouse Actual. So this didn't happen to me directly, but it did happen to my cousin, and I was there for a good chunk of the chaos. My cousin, I'll call him Mike, owns a small 2-bedroom house. Nothing crazy, just a modest place in a quiet neighborhood. He travels a lot for work, usually gone for a few weeks at a time, but always keeps the place locked up, security cameras on, the usual. Everything was fine until one trip changed everything. Mike got back from a 3-week work trip, pulled into his driveway, and immediately knew something was off. There was a car parked in his driveway. Not his car. At first he thought maybe a neighbor had someone over or something, but then he noticed the front door. It was slightly open. Mike told me later, at that moment my stomach just dropped. I knew something wasn't right. So he walks cautiously, pushes the door open, and walks inside. And sitting on his couch, watching TV like he owned the place, was some random guy. Mike, can I help you? And this guy, completely calm, goes, "Yeah, you can stop trespassing in my house." Yeah, let that sink in. Mike thought it was some kind of joke, like maybe a friend playing a prank. Mike, dude, I live here. Guy, no you don't. I have a lease. A lease for my house? At this point, Mike is confused, annoyed, and starting to get angry. The guy, let's call him Squatter Steve, pulls out a printed document and waves it around like it's some golden ticket. Mike doesn't even entertain it. He just calls the police. Now, here's where it gets insane. The police show up, hear both sides, and then ask Steve for his lease, and Steve hands them this very official-looking document. Names, dates, signatures, the whole thing. Completely fake, obviously, but it looked real enough. Then they ask Mike for proof of ownership. Mike shows them everything. ID, property documents, utility bills. So you'd think case closed, right? Nope. The officer literally says, "This might be a civil matter. We can't remove him without an eviction process." Mike, are you serious? He broke into my house. Officer, he claims he has a lease. You'll need to go through the courts. Mike told me later that was the moment his brain just broke. Like, imagine being told you have to legally evict someone who broke into your own house. So Mike had no choice. He stayed with a friend that night and immediately contacted a lawyer the next morning. And this is where the harassment started. Because once Steve realized Mike wasn't backing down, he got bold. Mike started getting notifications from his security cameras, Steve inviting people over, parties, loud music, trash piling up outside. At one point, Steve even changed the locks on Mike's own house. Mike tried to confront him again. "Mike, you need to leave. This is my house." "Steve, talk to my lawyer." He didn't have a lawyer. He just said that to sound official. Then things escalated even more. Mike got a letter in the mail from some fake tenant rights group claiming he was harassing a lawful tenant. Yeah, Steve had gone that far. So now Mike's dealing with a squatter in his home, fake legal documents, property damage, and potential legal trouble, all while being locked out of his own house. This went on for almost a month. Finally, the court date came, and this is where everything unraveled for Steve. Turns out the lease he had, completely fabricated. Wrong property details, fake signatures, even the date formatting didn't match legal standards. The judge didn't even hesitate. Immediate eviction order. But it gets better. Mike's lawyer had also gathered evidence of breaking and entering, fraudulent documentation, and property damage. So, as Steve was being escorted out, Mike hit him with a civil lawsuit. And yeah, Steve didn't win that one either. He ended up owing thousands in damages, and from what we heard, he also caught some criminal charges for the forged documents. Mike finally got his house back, but he had to replace locks, repair damage, and basically deep clean everything. He told me it felt like I was a guest in my own home. Absolutely insane.
Before we jump into the next story, make sure you hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories reach. And now, let's move on to the next story. This one is titled, My Landlord Finally Backed Off for the First Time by albina.tqn. So, my landlord has a habit of asking for small favors, which usually means we end up paying with our time and inconvenience so he can save a buck or two by doing repairs himself. He doesn't really take no as an answer and keeps pushing, tries to guilt trip me, like he's trying his best but just needs a little help. This turns into a back and forth where I have to repeat myself multiple times or I eventually give in. Well, today, I woke up to a message that he would like to use our apartment for multiple showings so he can rent another unit. Because I knew he wasn't going to take no as an answer, I started being more agreeable than usual because I wanted to waste some of his time. I asked first, why our apartment? And he said because the tenant is on vacation and he's moving out end of April and is trying to find a new tenant. He kept reiterating that it was very time-sensitive in him wanting to find a new tenant. Then I had a stroke of genius. My landlord obviously loves money, since that's usually what our time and effort ends up saving him. So I needed to start talking his language, the language of money. So I said, yes, I will gladly help you, providing we get an adequate rent reduction for our time and inconvenience. Us helping you will financially benefit you, and I want us both to be on the winning side. This is the first time there was zero back and forth, the shortest reply I've ever gotten, an immediate acceptance of our boundaries. If there's one takeaway from my story, it's this. The one thing greedy people don't respond well to is being met with the same mindset.
Let's move on to the last story. Don't forget to like this video and share it to your friends, and of course, comment where you're watching from. This one is titled, "My Manager Fired Me on the Spot for Refusing Extra Work." This ended up costing the store about $40,000 by Otherwise Smile 3453. Anyway, this is the story of how I was fired from my part-time job at a local supermarket and how my manager tried to have the police arrest me over it. I only worked a few nights a week, just enough to cover my son's soccer expenses. What I did was simple: work the register and stock the snack aisle. The problem started when the guy who did the deep cleaning for the butcher department quit suddenly. Instead of hiring someone new, the store owner decided that the closing cashier should add this to their duties while still serving customers. The owner would just sit comfortably in his office scrolling on his phone, and as soon as he heard the door chime, he would buzz the intercom for the cashier to come to the front. When I came in for my 6 o'clock shift, they presented this new plan to me. I told them flat out that this wasn't going to happen. It's not what I was hired for. He looked at me and said, "Either you clean the butcher department or you're fired." Then he turned and walked away without another word. So I said, "Fine by me," grabbed my jacket and bag, and left. Apparently, he thought I had given in and gone to the back to start cleaning the meat grinders. For 2 full hours, every time a customer came in, he kept buzzing the intercom for me. This went on until an angry customer complained, and only then did they discover the register was completely unattended. In that time, someone had stolen the expensive liquor, the cigarette cartons from behind the counter, and some rolls of scratch-off tickets. Around 9 p.m., my phone started blowing up. It was him yelling and saying he was going to call the police on me. And he did. He told the police I was an accomplice to the theft because I had abandoned my post. The police called me and asked me to come to the store, which I had no problem with. I explained that he had fired me and I left because, simply, I no longer worked there. I told them the security cameras would show them everything. As soon as they pulled up the footage, everything became crystal clear. They could clearly see and hear him firing me. In the end, I heard the total losses were around $40,000. That's a huge hit for a small business like that. All because he was too cheap to hire a dedicated cleaner for the job. All right, before you go, if this story had you feeling anything, anger, shock, or even satisfaction, make sure you hit that like button so more people can see stories like this. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next story, trust me, it's even crazier.